Hi, I'm Paul. I'm going to show you how to cook the perfect steak. The best beef for using on the barbecue when you're looking at steak form is Scotch steak. The next thing is looking at your oil that you're going to cook with. And I use Alpha One rice bran oil for the reason being that you can cook with it. It's high temperature, high smoke point, and it doesn't have a very strong flavour. My method, and there's a lot of myths as to whether you put the oil onto the barbecue itself or whether you oil the food. If you put the oil onto the barbecue, lots of flames will pop through and you'll end up with a steak that's quite black. It doesn't taste good. So we add the Alpha One rice bran oil to the steak itself. We massage the oil into the steak, we flip it over. So now it's coated and it's ready to go. But food needs flavour. So sea salt, and lots of freshly milled pepper. It's really, really important that it's at room temperature when you bring it out. This has been out and we're only talking around about 30 minutes that it needs to be out on the bench covered. This Scotch steak weighs in at about 200 grams. So this is going to take, for a medium rare, around about a minute and a half to 2 minutes aside. What's important though is that the barbecue is on full heat. Now you've got to have something showy to come off the barbecue, so with the griddle you can do what we call cross hatching, and this is where you place it onto the grill. So what I'm doing here is just pushing down onto the steak as it starts to cook, and what that does is it sucks it into the grill plate so we get those nice cross hatching lines happening. You can see here, there's the lines. We're just going to turn it around and go back in the opposite direction so we get that nice cross hatching. I'm just going to talk you through about the cooking degree of steak. There's a lot of myths about turning the steak only once. I'm not a big believer in that, mainly because it all depends on how hot your barbecue is. Like an oven, everyone's barbecue cooks at different temperatures. And also it's a lot to do with how thick or thin the product is. Okay, so I tend to find with steak that I get a really good seal, really hot barbecue, flip it once, cook it, and if it doesn't feel like it's cooking fast enough on one side, I'll flip it back the other way. As long as I'm in control of the cooking process, that's what matters to me. So we're just going to turn this over, and you can see here we've got a nice little cross hatch. We've got this lovely caramelization happening on the steak, and we're just going to seal off the other side. One of the ways that I got taught when I was an apprentice in a Japanese restaurant that I started off in is the Japanese chef grabbed my hand. It was about my third day in, grabbed my hand and said, right, do this, Paul. So I did that, and he says, this is your steak, this in here. And when you keep your hand really tight and you push in here, that's what a well done steak would be. So keeping it nice and tight, cupped, push in there, that's a well done. There's not a lot of give. As you loosen your hand off, this area here becomes softer. So just in here, as I loosen my hand off, that's now becoming medium rare. And a medium would be keeping your hand slightly tight. Okay, so there's a medium, that's a medium rare, and a rare is just a really relaxed hand, and you push down there and there's quite a lot of give. Okay, and a rare probably only takes about a minute aside. So I'm just going to pull this off. I'm going to show you the next important part about cooking protein. So the steak has to rest. What happens is the juices redisperse back through the product. So we're going to let that rest. And a good rule of thumb is on something like this, if this took 3 minutes to cook, I'm probably going to give that around about 2 to 3 minutes resting. The grains are quite visible. They'll all run in one direction. What you want to do is turn the steak around and you'll see that all the grains are starting to run this way on the steak. Okay, so we slice across. If I was to turn around and cut this way with the grain, this piece will be a lot more chewy to eat than the other piece. So it's really important that you cut against the grain. Discover the secret of cooking that perfect steak with Alpha One.